was in charge of the facility by contract, did automatically put up red flags by
Hmm.
itself. But
Okay.
then, in as so far as actual day by day tasking, when I knew that something was officially up, was when the ELF system became identified to me as being energized and active, as opposed to being de-energized and deactivated, as I was told up until that point. So when I learned the contrary, that the system was up and running, I knew that there was something afoot, so to say, in Sherlock Holmes terminology.
Mm, right. And so when did this actually, I'm not even going to go there yet. And you started so having access to the building, you were able to when certain things went wrong in certain places, you'd have to go there, and you'd end up in a room with, say, a scientist. And you said, you're an out, you kind of like stroke their egos a little bit and allow them to open up to you.
Hmm.
And you started having conversations with the scientists there, and
Yep.
learning what they were doing. What were they doing?
They were basically using really fancy equipment to look outwardly into the cosmos, and for all practical purposes, like counting stars and star systems, looking at density of suns. So a lot of it would be, I guess you would say, if you were to try to reduce it down to a common term, would be looking for signs of life
Huh.
in a lot of the telescope work. Then there was also the Arrow facility, the Atmospheric Research Observatory, was doing a lot of stuff more locally in regards to the atmosphere specific to that location, being South Pole in the winter, very clean air.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I can only assume the visibility. The one thing that would be cool is the stars, and
Oh, that
the
was off the wall, almost
yeah.
almost beyond the ability to put words to it. It was, I guess, the best way to try to describe it would be that it was the same as being in outer space, because at that elevation, all you really had to do was just lift your head up a few degrees, and then the whole world drops out of view. So at that point, with your head
Right.
just slightly elevated, you can now rotate 360 degrees and the entire planet is out of view.
Wow, that's fucking
So it's
crazy.
the same as being in space. Like, what's the difference between that and being at a space station looking out a window where there's nothing below you? It was
Right.
an
It gives you that.
absurdly gorgeous view.
Right. It gives you that. I forget what they call it. It happens to astronauts when they look back at Earth for the first time. It's like it gives
Oh,
you like there, there's a word for it.
it's something about being tiny too, because it did make you feel very
Feel
tiny. Like
small.
I could,
Yeah, it
yeah, I
puts you
could
in space.
lay. Lots of times, I would just lay back on a snowbank and just look up. And again, there's nothing
Yeah.
blocking the view and the perspective. I mean, it's nuts. Like, you can almost imagine yourself as being like upside down and stuck to the
Right.
earth and looking out over space. It's
Right.
perspective
And
is
you're
reality.
at, you're at one of the poles too, man. Like it's just, I mean, in any other circumstance, being there for like 2 days would have been cool. Like, and 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 getting to, but a year, obviously, they have time limits for a reason,
Mhm.
and because people go a little insane in those kind of environments.
They call
Uh,
it getting toasty.
yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So your term that you signed on for how long?
It was for 1 year.
What? So 1 year exactly?
Yeah, pretty much. I
Okay.
mean, it's a ballpark that's not really written in stone so much, because it really just has to do with weather and flights for when you start and finish. But it's a ballpark for that
Okay.
vicinity
And
of
then,
time. It was for a summer season followed by a winter season.
all right. And then they rotate out.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
did you ever have the opportunity, or I guess, do they invite you back, or do you have to reapply?
You officially have to reapply, and
And I'm
I would just
assuming
say
you
that.
never did.
What's that?
Did you? I'm assuming you just never did
No,
because.
I had reapplied a couple of times,
Oh wow.
and one time was actually by request for some folks in the program because there's 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 some systemic problems in the United States Antarctic program that there is a period of time that they considered me as the most viable option to mitigate the problem, and they went with a different direction, and you know, there's
That's a very interesting. That's
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, so it is what it is.
I mean, because
I
you
would have
had done
done.
some work previously with your company. I know in 2008 you had a tough time after Obama's administration kind of, you know, screwed the pooch on that. But
Mhm.
you're doing some work for some really, let's just say, peculiar clients.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cl- um, so some of the people that you did work for, they were able to dictate what you drove, how you got there, when you got there, able to call you 24 hours a day. So this is I'm taking this from your testimony.
Yeah,
I think you gave to Patrick Bet David,
yeah.
um, and so that experience, and again, uh, I kind of want to bring this up because do you think do you do you think there's a possibility that the CIA tried to groom you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Or insert three-letter agency here, kind
I
of.
I think somebody put time and effort and investment into making me some sort of a resource, and that like piece of equipment that's available to rent to the highest bidder.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's how
some
they
some
boil it
government
down.
program where they can build this if they do that, and then we have this thing over here on the shelf, and you too can use it for the low day rate of.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So, uh, uh,
I mean, this is how our government tax dollars work, folks.
it's so bad.
It's
It's so
literally just
true.
gets that simple.
It's so simple. It's bad. It's so bad. Like Tim Burchett said, he's a friend, and dadgummit, the when was the last time the Pentagon passed an answer? Zero. And I'm just like, yeah, you're right, sir.
Yeah. I
Absolutely
mean, and
right.
if you can think of almost any nefarious plot that you can think of right now, just think of how many years ago someone else could have thought of it. And as long as they never tried it before, they're just obliged to invest in it anyhow to see how it pans out. I mean, there's so much stuff that they invest in just because of that alone. Like they're like, well, we've never wasted money on that before.
Yeah.
So
Let's try that avenue.
we have to see what that means.
Yeah. And we do. And then-
Yeah.
and um God, it makes me laugh because so I mean, some of these people that you did work for, it seems like you said that you, the South Pole ended up being the only option on the table for you, and
Mhm.
it seems that you were put there, and then you go through this kind of just really odd experience where you start connecting the dots. You're kind of experiencing some Havana syndrome esque um, uh, symptoms. You and your crew throughout the whole experience. I can only and that isn't something to just scoff over. I mean, that stuff is brutal. Like not being able to see uh, skin burns, that kind of stuff, like disorientation, dizziness, tinnitus. All those things will drive you mad.
They
Imagine a
have a value.
constant ringing
They
in your
made
ear.
these weapons do this for a reason, and it's not because it's dysfunctional. It's because it's effective. There's a
Absolutely.
reason that they invested billions of dollars into this tech. It's because it works.
So my question is, what is this thing that is down there causing this? What is it? I mean, you've said it before, but what is it at its? What do they want us to believe it is, and what is it really?
They want us to believe it's a passive listening device, but in reality, it is yet just another multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that can do a multitude of terrible things. And those are the conversations that we need to start engaging and the vocabularies that we need to start building, because currently there's just a lack of understanding because this stuff is so new. We don't have the words for it yet. Therein lies a huge part of the problem, is that this is, I mean, it's literally that new. When I say directed energy weapons, I mean, most people don't even know what that means to
Yeah,
begin with.
right,
And that is it. I mean, just right there, that's a
right.
huge conversation to just now have to turn to people and go, all right, folks,
Right.
here's everything that you need to know about the
Yeah, this is a
cons
new.
list.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah, I mean,
neutrino. This is
there's
what
pros and
happens.
cons to everything. There's pros to directed energy weapons systems being around, but there's also cons. So let's just dive into the cons list. I mean, this is a massive problem to digest. Uh-oh, they're calling you right now.
No, my phone just jumped off of the stand. Fucking
Oh, there
really
you go.
creepily. Yeah, literally jumped
That's not
off.
peculiar.
Not at all. Has nothing.
Right?
It's not
According
the
to like
goddamn
horror movie
neutrinos.
statistics, there's something behind you right now. Like,
Yeah, the
you're
shadow. I
supposed
was
to
just
have left already. That was the cue.
yeah. I, I- every time I've talked to someone who's a whistleblower, something weird happens.
There you go.
Something weird happens.
Mhm.
So I'm sure I'm gonna have some weird dreams tonight. Or something, or it literally happens every single time.
They'll hit you
So
with the double laser beam tonight.
yeah, the double
Get
laser.
a
So
second dose.
yeah, you and this is actually very serious. You think so? You've attributed this neutrino device to earthquakes that happened in 2011 in New Zealand.
Yep. Yep.
Now, how do we correlate these two events? Like
You have
how do we
people.
prove that?
I mean, how to say the question again?
How can you say that those are related, and what evidence is there to suggest that it was absolutely this that caused it? This is not a gotcha
There
thing.
is no evidence that absolutely suggests anything to anyone without direct firsthand experience. But
Okay.
I'm coming from someone, as you know, having worked at the facility,
Got it.
having communicated with the crew that was operating the facility at the time that this occurred. I mean,
Okay.
what else do people need to know other
Yeah.
than that? Like, I mean, do people want a video of the button being hit? Do they want, a drone shot view that follows the electro beam? Oh, like, if put it this way, if no one knew that a 747 plane existed, and I told you I went for a flight in one, and then everybody said, "Well, prove it." Well, does the lack of being able to prove how a plane works at that point negate the fact that you went for a flight in one?
Right.
So sometimes people are asking for more than simply just appreciating what they're being given.
Yeah, no, and I understand. There's a
You
reason
know,
to
it's
have
like it's like pointing to the staircase to someone and being